Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Social Justice Politicast. This Monday, you have Skylar,
And Gabe.
and yeah, we're here to kind of give you the recap on how things went last week and go over the items that we flagged for tomorrow's meetings. Gabe, you were at City Council pretty much all day on Tuesday, right? Can you kind of walk us through how that went?
hmm Yeah, so our big item was actually item 29 that was on the consent calendar, and it ended up getting pulled for discussion, which was what we had assumed would happen based off of the community, showing up to make a lot of public comment. I think we had close to 40 people there to make public comment, but the item was essentially to uh, we were asking, community members were asking for an ordinance uh, to restrict or prohibit Sacramento Police Department from sharing information with ICE and Sacramento City to bar ICE from using any city resources or property. The council was presenting a resolution that was way past its 30-day deadline that it was supposed to come back to them to make a decision after Law and Ledge had decided to move forward with it. They did pass the resolution unanimously. However, again, that was not what community was asking for. Community was asking for an ordinance. There was a lot of reasons and justifications for why they did not choose to move forward with an ordinance on that day. However, council members Talamontes, Mai Vang, and Eric Guerra were in support of the city manager returning to city council by June 23rd with a detailed plan of implementation because as we understood from our episode last week, the resolution didn't really have any way to be enforced. And that was like its biggest pitfall and its biggest weakness. That community was saying, this isn't going to do anything. It's basically just a kindly worded letter saying, hey, please don't do this. So they requested that the city manager return by June 23rd before they go on recess with a detailed implementation plan. And at that time, they were hoping, the community is hoping, that there will be the potential of an actual ordinance. And as we mentioned in last week's episode, an ordinance is an actual policy that can actually be enforced. So stay tuned in terms of this coming back. I know that originally it had come to council in February, came back at the end of April. Now we're moving it down further till June. So we do have some time to prepare, which I think is really, really great for the community to be able to kind of circle around this, and then once it comes back, we'll let you guys know and how best to get involved in getting an actual ordinance passed that will ban the use of or ICE using any city resources or property.
Well, as well as, I mean, and tell me if I'm off on this, but my understanding was that another piece of the community asked for that was to like basically get SAC PD to lay off the protesters who are out front of the John Moss building, right? So I think that's another piece
Yes.
of it that I kind of got from watching it after the fact, was that people are like, it's nice, like basically the resolution is a way for you guys to signal like, hey, we don't like ICE either, but it also lets you off the hook if like the cops are fucking up. Like you guys basically just wrote a thing where you're like, well, yeah, but it's not an ordinance, it's a resolution. So
Right.
those cops are very bad.
Yes. Yeah.
But
100%. And also a big part of it was defining what resources and property are, right,
right,
according to the city, because there
right.
is a tremendous amount of information that SAC PD gathers on those protesters, and whether or not they share that information with ICE in their enforcement operations is one of those gray areas that council kept saying is not a gray area, but SAC PD sure acts like it's a gray area.
Mm-hmm.
So we're having a really clear understanding of these definitions of what resources are, what property is, and how to actually enforce, the ban, because they kept saying, well, we can't stop the federal government from doing these things. Um, but it's like, if you take that interpretation, right from the get-go, then like you're not even putting up a fight, right? And it's like that's what the community is requesting. Like stand by your laurels, stand by what it is that you say that you believe in, and create something with some teeth, and then hold the people that you employ, the Sacramento Police Department, accountable to that ordinance.
Right.
So we'll see. Let's hope, keep our fingers crossed. You know, other cities have
We'll
been able to
see.
do this, and when SAC should be no different.
All right. Well, yeah. So we'll stay tuned on that. All right. Let's move on to what is happening next week. Next week, there is no normal county board of supervisors meeting. There is one county meeting that we are flagging that we'll get to in a minute. But first, we'll start with what's happening at the city. So tomorrow, starting at 11 a.m., it will be the Budget and Audit Committee, who's getting busy right now because, spoiler alert, the budget proposal is in, which will be the 5 p.m. item. But until then, there's a couple of items that we flagged. Item 4 at the Budget and Audit Committee, it has to do with the Measure U Community Advisor Commission. Like it's what they have recommended. So for those who are not familiar, Measure U is essentially like a new pool of money that's created by a 1 cent sales tax that was voted on by all of us in Sacramento. The idea being that the community would have this like pool of money that it would be able to like through this advisory committee be able to nominate people who would then make their recommendations as to, hey, we want to put this into these parks or into these children's programs or whatever it is that the community wants. And kind of the good faith way to think about it is basically like, hey, you can be directly involved with this piece of the budgeting process. This money is the community's to decide what to do with, which is more or less how it has gone. However, there have been shenanigans where we've gotten ourselves into a tight situation, and then Mayor Steinberg was like, and maybe we'll give some of this money to the police, and everybody was like, absolutely not, that is not what you were saying when we all voted on this thing. So just yeah, so when these things come up and there's the Budget and Audit Committee is, who is it? I think it's Roger Dickinson, Karina Telemontes, Katie Maple, and Eric Guerra are going to kind of go over what the recommendations from the committee or from the commission are, and talk about basically what they're going to implement and what they're not, blah 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 blah. So there's that. They're also going to go over the new fees and charges that have recently been updated with, I think, a lot more. I haven't actually had a chance to look into this super closely. My understanding is it's a lot of ratcheting up ways to increase parking revenue, things like that. So there's but it does include fees charged not just by parking, but also by Community Development Department, the Department of Community Response, which is kind of a weird one. I think this is where we get into the, hey, people like homeless people can pay us for services, which, let's see, the Cultural Convention and Cultural Services Department, the Fire Department, Public Works, Yipsy. So everybody's kind of racking things up. It's worth kind of maybe taking a look at to see what fees fees and charges are being changed and applied. We are also going to there's the audit of the Sacramento Police Department evidence and property section, which who knows if there's even going to be anything worth seeing here, but this is kind of a rare moment of oversight for Sac PD. Maybe worth, if you're already looking for the fees and charges and the Measure U stuff, to just kind of stick around for item 6 to see what happens there. But then, Gabe, what is happening? There's the 2 p.m. city council meeting. What are they talking about there? What did we flag?
Yeah, the first thing that we flagged is item 3. It's the United Way California Capital Region for the Sacramento Children's Fund Guaranteed Basic Income for Transitional Age Foster Youth Program. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Skylar, but I think that I first saw this come up about a year ago, where it was first discussed with this plan of essentially helping kids in the foster care system by setting them up with a minimum basic monthly stipend, which has been proven in many other cities to be incredibly helpful for folks exiting the foster care system. These are our kids that have not been established with a family, a foster family. So this is looking at an initial 3-year funding period from July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2029, with an $8 million total award amount. These have been incredibly successful in other areas that where they've been implemented. So this is a really good opportunity for people in the foster care system. As we many of us probably know that those foster care is inundated. They're packed with people who need support and need help. So this is a really cool opportunity, I think, for people in the foster care system in Sacramento. And then we've also flagged item 10, which is the resolution of intention to renew the Oak Park Property and Business Improvement District, which is what PBID stands for, if you've ever heard that before. It's essentially like an HOA for businesses and property owners so that they have help with everything from garbage mitigation to citywide promotion. They've been used in areas of Sacramento that are much more affluent, who have had historically a lot of resources dedicated to them. So the fact that this is being presented for Oak Park, which has historically been a community that has suffered a significant amount of disadvantages perpetuated by the city budgeting. This could potentially be a big step in the right direction. So we're asking folks to show up for the 2 p.m. meeting on these two items, just to observe, record, and potentially report back to the community and see what happens to those. And then we also have some items on the 5 p.m. City Council agenda.
Yes, we have one item actually on the 5 p.m. City Council agenda, and that is the proposed budget overview. So this will be basically city management coming to their bosses on City Council to say, hey, here's what we think. Here's how we think we should allocate our general fund this year. This is not where they're going to vote on what the budget is, but it will be the first presentation which will set off. You've been if you've been keeping up with us, that sort of departments have been coming through one by one all the last couple of months to talk about kind of areas where they think they could cut or areas that they really don't think they can afford to take cuts. So this is kind of the first big cohesive, hey, this is the overview of what we're doing. There's likely to be several different options presented to city council. So this will be, I would imagine, a pretty robust discussion, as it usually is, about how we're gonna spend our money, your money, and then over the course of the next year. So definitely
And
worth.
when
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, when do they generally make when does the vote actually happen on the budget? It's usually in July. Is that
It's
correct?
typically, I want to say, it is right before they go on recess. Yeah.
Okay, so like end of June.
Yeah, end of June. Anyway, yeah, so worth kind of checking out and staying abreast of all of that. There's definitely the way that they present this. This is a very, very opaque process in which things are worded in ways that are basically impossible for lay people to understand unless you have like a background in finance or accounting. Honestly, I think that it should be required for them to put like basic pie charts and like bar graphs on page one that are like, here's like the cliff notes for somebody who does not have the time to parse a 5,000 page PDF that is written in basically a different language. But that's kind of, unfortunately, they don't have that. So it's kind of all of our jobs to sort of pay attention, look for shenanigans, look for the chicanery, and then flag it when we see it. So this is all a part of that process. Um,
And there was an article put out last week in which Mayor McCarty had already stated that there's going to be some really tough decisions about things that are going to get cut, right? Which is what we generally hear every year during budget season. So it's really important for us to keep an eyes on what's getting cut and what isn't getting cut. So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, like we always say, you're going to hear us say it to death, but like the surest metric for where their priorities actually are is this process.
Hmm.
So they can speak to whatever it is that they want, but it's the stuff that they decide to keep funding and the stuff that they decide to cut that are the real that's the real test of where people's priorities are. So we're about to
100%.
start getting that down. And then Gabe, we do have one of our community members flagged this
Yep.
sheriff's oversight committee. Can you kind of walk us through one of the items that got flagged on that?
Yeah, so this is the on Tuesday, the 6 p.m. Sacramento Sheriff Community Review Commission. And this item essentially is around the use of automated license plate recognition devices. Now, this was flagged, like Skylar said, for us, so we didn't catch this initially, but this is incredibly important. So, this is essentially the use of equipment that is able to identify vehicles being stored and potentially used against citizens in Sac County. For anyone who's ever like potentially gone to a protest or an action, especially around the Capitol, there is a tremendous amount of this already in use on Capitol grounds. But there is the potential of this software and these types of devices being used extensively throughout Sac County. And there's already been significant pushback in other cities and states where this has happened. And there's actually a Supreme Court case that we won't get into, but essentially determined that this was unconstitutional. So folks showing up to this meeting at 6 p.m. on Tuesday to voice their concern of not only how this information is collected and stored and used, but the oversight of the use of this information. Essentially, the way that this is currently worded, it allows the Sacramento Sheriff Office to once again audit themselves, right? Like they are the ones who are in control. They are providing themselves with the oversight, all right, rather than it being the board of supervisors or the people of Sacramento themselves, which is incredibly troubling and problematic in a myriad of ways. So folks have the opportunity, to show up to this meeting. And Skylar, am I correct in that the commissions at the county work very much like the committees and the commissions of the city, where like they make a decision and then it goes to the full board to then make a decision?
Yeah, so they would make recommendations based on what they want to do. Also, we should point out that this one is actually this will not be in person at the
Oh,
Board of Supervisors space. This will be done via Zoom, so we'll link that. We'll put that link in our show notes too.
perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Um, so you can still make public comment though. And we do have an email template that will link as well for folks who are interested in sharing their thoughts. It's got a very well articulated argument against the use of this with the option of inserting your own personal statement if you want to add that too.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for this next week. As always, if you're listening to this and you feel like we missed something important or we, are misrepresenting any of the things that we're saying, please reach out to us via any of our socials. Jump into our Signal thread that's ongoing. And yeah, I mean, this is we make our flags, but overall it's a community effort. And to be honest, like the community's really been coming through lately, and it's greatly appreciated. And it just makes everything, all the work that we are doing and that our partners are doing. And that other affiliated orgs are doing, it just makes everybody's work stronger. So thank you for caring and for throwing those flags up. And yeah, have a good week.
All right. See you next week.